Welcome to Reality After Show. Jonny and Lauren can't make it, but it's okay. Alex is here, so is my good friend Dan. We're here to dissect episode 7 of The Challenge, Ride or Dies. Dan, what were your initial thoughts on the episode?
I thought this was a really good episode. For me, I think it was the best episode of the season so far.
Yeah, it was a good episode. I think this episode in particular, like, yes, you still have some like the personal stuff like happening, but I feel this game and a lot of the decisions that were made in this episode was all like on a game level. We get to see drama based on game. Like it's like it felt good, especially like that's what we've been sort of getting through the challenge Australia. It's like personal beef that's mixed with game, friends getting put up against each other, and we get that today as well. But we start off the episode with them immediately coming back. Oh,
real quick, because you missed last week's, and I'd be have a podcast, and I'd be interested to get your take. Where were you kind of going into this week's episode? Because I know I had said with Jonny that I had personally loved for the, like I said, Jay and Michelle. I think they messed up, not the number of ways that they did, but simply because they poked the bear and they pissed off Jordan. And I think that was a stupid thing to do. And Jonny was more on the side of, Jay and Michelle are his friends. So he wasn't as big of a fan of it because he didn't like Jordan coming after him. So I'm just curious where you kind of fell on everything, heading into this week's episode.
Well, I'm always going to support Jay and Michelle. I want them to do well. And I think we're starting to see that in this episode too, is like, while they may not be like the power players, we're now starting to see like, no, they actually do have some things in the works. Like they have ability and they're willing to stand up for what they believe in, which is great for the challenge. I was on their side more because of the hypocrisy of the vets, and I get why the veterans have the hypocrisy because it's conditioned in them. When you have so many seasons, especially these past several, where it's been the status quo of veterans don't get touched till halfway through the game, and get sent in, rookies get sent in, and then suddenly that's shipping,
Mm-hmm. No, I guess that makes sense. Just
was I cut out there? Yeah.
I don't know who it was there. Can you hear me now? We good?
We're good.
Okay. All right, perfect. Well, yeah, no, I heard most of what you said, but yeah, I was just, before we dove into this episode, I was just curious what your thoughts were. So I can let you get back to setting everything up.
Yeah. It felt great, and unfortunately Anissa gets to have another elimination victory. She gets to be back at 500, 11-11. Congrats. Good job blocking an entire target. Proud of you. But Jordan thinks this is the momentum that they need. This is the boost. They had to dust off the cobwebs, some more than others. And now they have the momentum and the confidence to continue in this game.
I mean, Jordan has it. Whether Anissa has it, that's TBD.
It's very TBD. And, like, it's funny because I can still see a lot of these teams making the final, but I feel like they're really showing us, like, what's the downfall or, like, what's going to be what brings them down at the end and doesn't get them the win. And for them, and you see it in daily, we'll talk about it later, is Anissa's cardio. Shocker. Something that every single podcast talks about, but yet, does she change anything? No.
Why would she? She's fine.
She's on the Challenge official podcast, She gets to put her propaganda out there. She's in the right. It's okay. It's her time.
Yeah, and I mean, if you watched the 6 episodes prior to the season of the Untold History, she was put in the GOAT category. Why she was there, I don't know, but they put her there.
I would put her in a GOAT category.
Different,
but it ain't the GOAT. Oh. But yeah, so we also get to see Jay's perspective. Like, they're like, we're in deep shit. Everyone's mad at us. Once again, it just goes with the picks that they made last week should have happened the round before when they won the first time. I don't think people have as much of a hard feelings about it, but we do see that they sort of aren't in the worst position anymore. Like, because we go into the next day, Devin and Tori are going to have a secret meeting, quote unquote secret meeting, while Anissa and Bananas have their Saturday skin routine. That part was funny. I was getting a kick out of that.
Yeah. And according to Devins, take it as you will, what he said is it wasn't that they just had a one deal challenge with Jay that they talked about going into Jay and Michelle going into last episode. According to what he said, they had an originally, I guess it was, post Bananas, Nani, Jordan, and Issa entering the house. They had a 3 challenge deal with them where they weren't going to go after each other. And so they had that. And then going into last week's episode, they kind of re-upped it and just did one more. So this isn't like they just started working together or weren't going to go after each other starting last week. It's been going on for majority of the game. So that also goes back to showing that Jay and Michelle have, they do have more relationships than maybe we were initially shown.
Right. And this goes into the the underlying issue that a lot of people were having was, why aren't Tori and Devin being touched? And it's because Devin is going around making all these deals with everyone in the house. And between that and the friendships that they do already have, they feel untouchable. Like, they shouldn't be ever being nominated as one of the 4 teams. But Tori's now starting to get a little cold feet from it because her ex was put in there. And her best friend who don't know.
Yeah.
And I hate that my internet's being fucking dumb.
I also think that part of that was a little bit of Tori trying to save face, to be like, no, it wasn't me. Like, it was Devin. I let him, handle all the politics, when I feel like secretly she was completely fine with letting him do that. She maybe just didn't want that on the record.
Right. Right. It just bothers me that, because I'm like, I get it. And Jonny can attest to it too from his experience. Like, when you're playing with your friends, like, it's very hard to disconnect the friendships from the game. And I feel like with Devin's very much like I'm friends with you, but like, I want to win. And 2, it's like, how much of a benefit are you to me as a game piece if you're not doing anything other than floating on by?
Yeah, and I don't think he's accused of having a deal with everyone in the house. I don't think that he has that deal with everyone in the house. I think it's more of he went after all the strong teams. Like, if you have a chance at winning a daily, that's who he's aligning himself with, because clearly it looks like, as we get into it, he never had to deal with Amber and Chauncey. So I don't think it's everyone. I think he just, saw, hey, these are the teams that can probably win dailies. I'm going to have as many deals with them as possible because I don't want to go in.
Right. And really, I think this is probably is going to be the storyline for Tori and Devin throughout this season, is this split of Devin, who's now like willing to play a dirty game, or like a more outwardly dirty game, whereas Tori still wants to, or at least feigning in confessional, saying she wants to play an honorable game and like play it clean, play it well. And I just do not think that will happen. I think the story has to be that she embraces Devin's part of the strategy, I feel. And that's what gets them their win, because I'm still going to say it's their season to lose at this point. But that shifts us over to Amber. And Amber believes that Devin is a snake and no one should trust him. But someone that she does trust, and one of the only veterans that she trusts outside of her mentor, Darrell, is Nelson. Nelson is the only person who really like came to her at the beginning of the game, like made her feel secure. So he's not a name that will ever come out of her mouth. Q Nelson's just like, I'm learning in this game. Like, this season, I'm just trying to be quiet, listen more than I talk, be in the middle of everything, but don't have to like directly create targets.
Yeah, wonder why we were shown this conversation. This couldn't possibly play into later in the episode.
Oh, yeah. It was like, I wrote in my notes in this section of the episode, I'm like, Amber and Chauncey got confessionals. They're going into elimination. Because the only time we have ever heard Chauncey talk is refreshing what a challenge is or talking during an elimination. Like, we do not get strategy confessionals from Chauncey.
Hey, that's at least a little bit more than we're getting from Kenny.
I mean, that's true. No lies there. But we do see Chauncey talk here. After the Nelson and Amber conversation, they feel good. Nelson says to her, "Your name will never come out of my mouth if I win." Good job, Nelson. Good job. Good work. But Chauncey's in a conversation with Jordan, and he's like trying to learn the game. And I give him kudos for trying to learn how to play the game. He's like, "Hey, I'm friends with Jay. I'm friends with Devin. I'm friends with Nelson. I get lines are being drawn. I just want to know, like, we're good. If I win, I'm not going to come after you. I would just like to believe you won't come after me." And Jordan's just like, "Yeah, I'm good with that. I'm coming after all your friends, but I won't touch you. That's fine."
Yeah, and I think that, that can be a good idea, is because I think with so many, especially more with the vets and even, I guess, rookies, it's across the house, is a lot of people think that, oh, if so-and-so is against one of my allies, that we automatically have to be against each other. But especially in this game where you're trying to stay out of the draw, if you can be good with as many teams as possible, like, it doesn't have to be that permanent line in the sand that I'm on this side, you're on that side, so we're going at it.
Absolutely. There's a lot of gray area in the challenge, and you don't need to be black and white about it. Like, it doesn't have to be you versus the world. Like, Jordan's learned that over time. Like, he's still a hothead, and he will make it black and white, but like, it very clearly, and this isn't a shot at him for other things out for why he wasn't on the show for a few seasons, but he can make things black and white at times, but he's willing to politic now, which is more we could say about him in the past. This leads us, though, to our first party segment of 2 in one episode, which was interesting. So they have, I guess, like, they had a day off. So they are day drinking in Argentina, but they're lined up with a view of a cemetery of apparently only dead politicians, according to Darrell.
What a sight.
What a sight. What a sight to behold. But this is where we get Bananas talking with Darrell. And Bananas trying to say to him, like, "Hey, I get what you're doing. Like, kudos to you. But look how big that group is. There's like 5 other teams there that are all working together. You chop us all off. I get it. Like, good on you. You're taking out competitors. But once, like, it gets down to, in Nelson's term, the needy greedy, you're going to be called first. You're veterans. You're champions. Like, people want new champions. That's a known thing around this house, is that a lot of these people want to see new people be crowned challenge champion. But yeah. Darrell's still, and Veronica are still like, well, they're only saying that to us now because it's convenient. Like, they just were sent down there. We're not going to buy into this. We're going to stay comfortably in the middle and not have to make a choice until we need to.
Yeah, and I mean, that's pretty much always been Darrell's game. And I mean, it's part of the reason of why he was able to win. Those first challenges that he was on was just not being in anyone's bad side, or, a lot of them were teams. So it made it easier. And I think that, if you can play it well, it can benefit you greatly in this game. But I think it's really hard, and we really haven't seen him pull that off necessarily since he's kind of returned over the past few seasons.
It's a shame because, like, I love Darrell. I think Veronica's good for the show too, but I think despite them being, like, good friends, I think as a duo, they just don't work in terms of, like, performing well in the challenge, which we see throughout this episode and ultimately with them going. But, like, they have a mind for it. It's not like they don't know what's going on. They don't see the writing on the wall. Like, they are very aware of what's happening despite them playing quieter games.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, I completely agree. I think they probably both would have been served with, in this game in particular, with different partners.
And I almost feel like if they started the season just there, it's different.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's always going to be there when you don't come in till, the end of episode 3 or 4, whatever it was.
Right. And I feel like that I know Darrell keeps saying like, oh, this isn't like the end for me for the challenge, but I'm like, I still feel like they're better suited for All Stars format. Maybe if they continue the CBS challenge, like maybe have them be people that show up if you want to have like bigger MTV names like on it in a future season and not just CBS. But that's all speculation and theory at this point. But we now get Casey and Fessel. They're still talking about like we're just getting reestablished to the viewers that their bond's still good. People don't say each other's names to the other, but I think we actually get this is like a good like confessional from Fessel, where he's just like, I know who I am. I know what I can do in elimination. I know what I can do overall in challenges. I don't need to be someone who politics a lot. I don't need to promise a lot to anyone. I have the people that I know. I can stick to that. More people will be intimidated to throw me in because a lot of my physical background backs up what I've done in previous seasons. But they're now more concerned of like where does Nelson lie? Where does Devin lie? Like we have friendships with them, but in a season now where you have to nominate four teams, it's not a last place team goes in and then you just pick another one. You have to call out a third of the house at this point. Where do those lines draw?
Yeah, and no, I agree. This was a good confessional from them, and especially because of where they sit. That they have that rookie veteran pair, no championships, but he also has the connections with the veteran side. So for them, I don't think he really needs to politic right now. Now he probably will as the game goes along. Whether he does that or not, to be seen. But I think right now it makes sense because he doesn't need to do a whole lot. He's in a pretty good spot.
Well, he is an introvert after all. We do know that about him.
Of course.
And he's better than 99% of NFL players currently active in the NFL.
100%.
Yeah. No, not 100%, 99%. He made sure to say that. But our last thing at the bar before we go to the daily is Anissa once again being bad at the social game. Outwardly just like lecturing Jay on what is good or not good in the challenge, which is just her being butthurt that, oh, it's because Jordan pissed you off and like said derogatory things to you that you threw us in. Like, why do I have to be his keeper? I'm like, well, that's the season. Yeah. You will get punished for what your partner does. Like, and how about you play better?
Yeah, no, it's all hypocrisy from Anissa. She does this all the time. She's always going to find an excuse, a reason. And especially now when, you have so few teams, you're probably going to have a relationship with at least one person on a team. So you have to weigh out the total of what the team was. If someone pissed you off, then it's going to be a good enough reason at this point.
Right. And like if Jay has better friendships with other teams and also, you are partnered with a champion and he wants all the champions out, like, be better. Like, I literally have my notes say Anissa has way too much of an ego for someone who has nothing to show for it in all of her time in the challenge. Like, she has 11 elimination wins. Congrats, you have played in 16 or 17 seasons. Like, you were going to be in an elimination a lot. And congrats, you won them. But you also lost half of those as well. So you've been to 2 finals and you lost both of them. And they were in like team formatted finals as well with strong competitors, and you weighed them down. And you are going to weigh Jordan down too. And I don't mean that as a weight joke. I just mean in the sense of like, you won't run. Your body is built for comfort. Your words, not mine. So
yeah, absolutely. And I know, especially, I think that's, everyone's curious to see how they do in a final if they were to make it, just because of how good Jordan is. But I think that's also like, it's a good reason is yes, maybe Anissa can normally skate by because she's not perceived as that finals threat. But I think Jordan just scares the hell out of everyone because he's so good when it comes to the final aspect of this game that if you can get him out, you probably should take that shot because yes, he's very good in eliminations, but he's even better at finals.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's either like 3 for 4, 3 for 5 in finals that he's competed in. Like it's something like a very high winning percentage.
It's 3 for 4. The only one he didn't win was Rivals 2, his rookie season when he was paired with Marlon and he was going up against more
Yeah.
of a prime
That was
West and
CT and West and Frank and Bananas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it started off with the swim where a team got eliminated right away, and Marlon wasn't a great swimmer, so they got cut and weren't even able to compete in the final stage of it.
I think Marlon would just sink these days. He's too muscular now. Have you seen him?
He's
jacked. To put it lightly. But time for the daily. It's Peaking Blinders, not Peaky Blinders. It's a good show though. But Peaking Blinders, you're gonna need good memory skills and good cardio. Anissa's shaking. So for this challenge, you have to start at the board at the beginning of the path, and then you race down a path to your answer key that behind a set of blinds is a pattern that you'll then have to replicate on your board. But the only way to open that up is by one of the partners standing on a very small pole to open up the blinders with one foot and balancing while your partner's up on a ladder to memorize the answer key. Whoever solves the puzzle first wins. Once again, I feel like this is an episode where I'm going to keep asking at Buna Murray and MTV, like, what took them so long to put Nerys on the show? Like, I remember when she was on Are You the One, and Are You the One was the feeder show, and they kept not bringing her back or bringing her on. And the fact that this is her rookie season, I think is laughable because I thought back then when Are You the One was on, like, she was made for the challenge.
Yeah, I completely agree. I didn't see her season, but I mean, I imagine she was probably, similar to what she is now as she was back then. And she just seems like someone that's built for the show.
She has a good personality. She's hungry for a win. She doesn't care if she has to snake people or not. Like, she believes in herself. She hypes herself up, and that's all you need in reality TV, and I'm for it. But I think her and Nelson are just, like, proving, no matter what they do in this season, like, they could go out at any point. But I think, like, she is by far and away, I think, Nelson's best partner that he's ever had.
100%.
Like, I think she's a good balancing act. Like, he was good with Amanda, but, like, Amanda also is a chaotic player, and I think can cut loose a little times. Whereas Nerys, I feel, is a more calculated, more, like, willing to make the hard decision. And I think Nelson needs a partner like that that's, like, making the tough call.
Yeah, I agree, because I think there's too many times where maybe he plays with his heart or he just plays purely off of emotion. And I think it does him a lot of good having someone that has more of a sound strategical mind, thinks, hey, this is what's going to be best for us, not just how are you feeling right now.
Right. So we get into the daily. Nelson and Bananas are the fastest people on this from the get-go. And I thought that was sort of like a cool thing to see because, like, as we see in the preview, like, Bananas turns 40 while on the show. Like, and he's still, like, showing that he can go up against these people that are still, like, in their legitimate prime in terms of conditioning, now that this has become a sport and not as much a competition show / reality show. But I give kudos to the people that did the balancing for this. Like, it must have taken a lot of effort to maintain, like, even just a few seconds pressing down on that little, like, pole, because it was smaller than the ball of your foot.
It was smaller than the ball of your foot, and as you're transferring your weight, that it's also sinking down. Like, that's going to make it harder to keep your balance. So agreed. I mean, if you were able to, some of these people to keep it up for, 10, 15 seconds, I think that's pretty impressive.
Well, and as most of the smart teams know, you build from the bottom up because this isn't like a magnetic puzzle where you could just put stuff wherever and it'll stick. Let's talk about the teams that struggled. We have Darrell and Veronica, because Veronica is not much of a runner. So they are basically walking. I'm assuming, based off what TJ is saying, I'm assuming the path is about a mile either way, or
Mhm.
at least half a mile, because he said it took them 20 minutes. And if you're walking and you're walking at like a general pace, I feel like you could do a little over a mile in 20 minutes. So that's my guess for
Yeah, that makes sense.
how far it was. But they tried starting at the top. So they're basically out immediately. Um, the other team, though, that is struggling once again, uh, outside of Amber and Chauncey, just because love them, but they're dumb, uh, is Anissa and Jordan. And Jordan's like, okay, I'm getting a little agitated because like Anissa's walking, and if you're walking, that means you're not winning, and like she's not even attempting to jog. But she should at least be great at puzzles. Like she should be great at memory. Like that's her thing.
Mm.
She was not good at the memory either.
No, not at all. Because I feel like Jordan was, we only saw him a few times up there, but from what we saw, it seemed like he was giving her decent time to study the puzzle every time he went up on the, balancing pole.
Yeah, he was trying as much as he could to stay up there as long as possible, but they're just out of it. You have some teams that are in it, but really the main two teams that are in it are Nerissa Nelson and Tori and Devin. Um, Devin claims that he's going for the win in this, and they almost do win. I would like to believe that maybe they did want to do it to like sort of plant a flag, make their next move, whatever. But we see Nelson and Nerissa beat them in a puzzle comp. But to be noted, they do make a point of talking about how Devin's conditioning has very much improved since the last season.
Yeah, no, they made a point of that, and I know he's mentioned that he's kind of taken pride in the past for getting a little bit further as he plays that layup card, but I think that's something that he's not going to be able to do for much longer.
No, and I think he realizes that he's hungry to become a champion, and I think he wants to, if he wins, he wants to have respect behind that win and not just like, well, he was a layup that got to the end and miraculously won. Or like you won only because you had Tori there to be the muscle. He's like, no, I can stand on my own 2 feet. Unfortunately, they lose in a puzzle comp to Nelson. But really, I'm going to give the credit to Nerissa.
Yeah.
Because I love Nerissa and Nelson's dynamic in this comp, where Nelson's like, don't think about it. If you think about it too much, you're going to forget. Whereas Nerissa's just like, no, I'm going to plan ahead because guess what? I'm smart. Like, I'm a lot smarter than you, Nelson. I can plan ahead.
Yeah, poor old Spidey Nelly T.
Spidey T, But we do see that they get the win. They are safe this week. They're going to have to make 4 nominations, and they're going to have some tough conversations. But a tough conversation we don't need to have, especially during Black Friday and Cyber Week of all places, is you should want to be properly groomed. And Manscaped is here to help you with that.
Support for Reality After Show is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. That's right, 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code SURVIVOR at manscaped.com. If my math's correct, that's about 12 million balls.
The Performance Package 4.0 has arrived, and oh man, is it a game changer. Inside this package, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker, ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, Performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold your goodies.
First off, the Lawnmower 4.0, this trimmer is the future of grooming, and dare I say, the greatest ball trimmer ever.
Their 4th generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to help reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 is waterproof and has a 4000K LED spotlight that you need for a more precise shave.
Now, I have a dark shower curtain in my bathroom, and I've been looking for the perfect way to shave in the dark, kinda. Guess what? I found it. 4000K LED. No longer a problem. I got perfectly smooth, clean balls thanks to the Lawnmower 4.0.
It's time to take care of yourself, so go to manscaped.com and get 20% off and free shipping with the code SURVIVOR. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code SURVIVOR. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Thanks for sticking with us through the ad break. And don't forget, for more exclusive Reality After Show coverage, visit realitypatron.com. That's reality, Patron.com.
And we are back, and we have Nelson talking with Jay and Devin about what decisions to make. And I actually was very impressed with Jay in this conversation, where he's like, look, I get your position. I respect it. I respect that you're in the middle of everything, but this is the time of game where hard choices are going to need to be made. And we need to take out the champions. We need to put in Nani and Bananas straight up, send them out. It's our time for new champions to be made. And Devin's sort of like shaking his head in approval without actively saying Bananas, because he's like, this is tricky. Me and Bananas have mended fences, but do I trust him? No. And I want to be the champion. I can't win if these people that have proven to be able to win multiple times are still in this game.
No, yeah, Devin's in an interesting spot because he definitely benefit from obviously Bananas and Nani's not being there. But he's also, I think he's doing a good job of plausible deniability. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, all of this came up with strictly because of the beef that's kind of showing between Devin and Amber. But I also think that maybe he was doing Nani and Bananas a little bit of a solid, that by shining more of a light on that issue with Amber, that it takes it so that at least Nani and Bananas aren't the main vote going in. So he at least has a little bit more of deniability of like, hey, you were going in no matter what. I helped make sure that you weren't going directly into elimination. You at least had a shot.
Right. It's interesting. It's very tricky because obviously he's spinning a ton of plates, but he's not spinning them cleanly. Everyone's very much aware at this point that except Nelson, I guess, that he's playing all sides and making all these deals. And it was like, well, all of us vets are getting put in, but yet this vet pair, Tori and Devin, aren't getting touched. Ever since the first round, they have been not touched at all. And this is also where we get that Devin doesn't trust Chauncey and Amber. And this is where you were going with. And it's like, yes, let's put the champions in. Let's put this team in that I know I can't work with. And I know I can't wiggle my way out of a tough situation if they were to win. Have they been competing well? No. And that's where I'm like, this is starting to falter for me in terms of the planning of it all, because Amber and Chauncey aren't winning anything. They're not a threat in the final either. Darrell and Veronica aren't winning anything. And they could be a threat in the final, but once again, just like Anissa, Veronica's not good at her cardio, so they're not as much of a threat in the final, depending on how the final's set up. So I'm more in the mind of Jay, and it's like, let's get Anissa and Jordan and Bananas and Nani down there together and force those great teams to go against each other and take each other out.
Yeah, I mean, that's if they were to, Nerys and Nelson were to pull off the perfect move, that's what it would have been. But it's also, I love Jay, but I also think, it's also kind of hard to take that direct shot when, he didn't put Nani and Bananas directly in. Yes, he nominated them, but he didn't put them directly down in. He chose to do that with Jordan and Anissa.
Well, I think at this point, as much as he wants Bananas out, I think he is looking more at Jordan at the moment. It just wants him out. Which, hey, if that's your prerogative, sure. But I know we were planning to get to this later, but John brings up a good question here. I know you have a little more insight here. Why does everyone hate Amber?
So from what I heard, and this all comes from Devin, so take it as you will. Yeah, perspective. So take it as you will. But apparently what she does, especially with a lot of the females in the house, is she kind of plays a lot on their insecurities, and she tries to, bond with them that way. And I think when you do that for so long, people start to notice it. And another point that Devin made is it's just how she tries to compliment people that he takes as disingenuous, because he remembers that a comment that Amber gave to him in the past, I guess, in one of the past 2 seasons was, oh, you smile with your eyes. And immediately after Jay and Michelle won the first daily of the 2 they won in a row, she gave that same comment directly to Jay on the bus afterwards. So in Devin's head, he said that started putting up red flags, like, oh, you're kind of full of it and trying to, play all sides of the house. And I think that is what she's doing. She's trying to play all sides of the house, which no issue with that, because majority in this people of the house are. I just don't think she's able to do it as cleanly, and everyone's kind of caught up to her game.
Right. And I think that's like the frustration she has. And it's a granted frustration of what I'm doing in this game is no different than what anyone else is doing. I don't think I'm doing it to the degree that Devin's doing it, but like, yeah, Devin gets to walk free while anything that I do gets blown up into this bigger thing that it needs to be. And it's never with her in the room. It's always talked around her, but not to her. But it is a hypocrisy thing again, because let's look at Devin. Yeah. Devin's making deals with everybody. Devin wants to be protected by all sides of the house. And ultimately, it's him just going, well, if I can't trust her for her word, even though he's admitted that his own word should mean nothing to anyone, it's like, okay, but let's get them out, because even if there's some blood on my hands, I think I can wiggle out of it with Nani and Bananas. I think I can wiggle out of it with Vanessa and Jordan. Like, I'm not going to be able to get past Amber, because what we know about Amber is once you cross her, she is very vindictive. And that's what her eyes are going to be set on, is you and you alone. It's not going to be about anybody else.
Yeah. And this is jumping ahead a little bit, but we see a little bit later where he gets into it with Michelle. And Devin's recollection of the story is that he was, apparently there was a conversation, it was with Amber, Nerese, and Michelle. And this is kind of where, Amber just said everything about Devin, oh, he's a snake, he has deals with everyone, and kind of went on, what's going on with Devin? Why is he able to get away with all of it? And then Nerese went and told Devin about this conversation. So that was more about why he got into it with Michelle, was simply like, I know what happened in this conversation. Amber's saying all these things about me, and if we're working together, I expect you to have my back a little bit. And once again, according to him, so who knows, he says that Michelle did admit to that happening, but that was prior to everyone else coming out as you see it, when everyone's trying to de-escalate the situation. And that was why she said, well, I'm sorry, about it. And that's what kind of set him off, was that then in front of everyone, Michelle wouldn't admit what she was sorry for. Like, why did you apologize?
But here's my thing, and I get it. Like, if you want to be upset about that, or like try to make that a situation that benefits you, like, pop off, King, like, congrats. But from the perspective of Michelle, and from his own perspective, I get they had a deal, but like, she won twice. Was he an option?
No.
Was he considered? What were her exact words? She said, I made a deal with him. I trust him. That if he won, he would have kept his word with me. I'm not going to put him up. I'm not going to put him and Tori up. If she didn't want to work with you in some capacity, she would have put him up. So, like, I feel like it's like this weird, like, they must, like, it's after a night at the bar. People have had drinks. Like, you're going to be more mad just to be mad. And I think this was a weak moment for him.
No, agreed. And I was just kind of relaying what I heard. I'm not necessarily saying that I'm
Oh, right,
backing
right.
Devin here. But the only thing that I'll point out is that it has to be something that Amber's doing that maybe we're not seeing, whether it's big or, that they're not showing on the cameras, or it's just subtle that are rubbing people the wrong way, because this is, the third season in a row where people just don't like her for some reason. And we don't have an exact thing to point at, be like, that's why.
Well, I think it has to be the latter. I think it has to be that it's like subtle, or like she just makes comments that people like take the wrong way, because like everyone makes these comments to everyone. Like everyone's calling everybody a snake, but for some reason Amber calling Devin a snake offends the house, or parts of the house. Which we can jump into this now. So we go into deliberation, and Nelson and Nerese sort of like articulate why everything's going to happen. He's like, I'm working with Jay, which is news to us that he's now playing his flag with Jay, that they did talk in the preseason, which goes with sort of like the comments I've been making like these past few episodes of Jay maybe being okay in the future, because it does seem like now that some of the veterans are willing to like do some type of working relationship with him and Michelle. So
Yeah, I agree with that. I
yeah.
think he has a good shot as he keeps coming back with the newer vets. I think he still has a bit of an uphill battle with, the old guard of the vets, but they're more few and far between at this point. So I think Jay has a good, shot at doing well in this game, not, just this season, but for years to come.
I agree. And we need people that are at least going to be good in confessional. And he's been improving in confessional. I like his jokes. He's been a little more cutting loose in the confessionals these past few episodes. I love the I want to believe Devin, but can y'all blame me? I have trust issues in this house. Like I like his comments. They're very funny. But we get the options. And Nelson says we have to put Anissa and Jordan in. I understand that Jay fired the shot, but now it's on us to commit and show Jay that we will try what we can do to protect him. So they do that. They put in Nani and Bananas. Bananas won. Nani's Nelson's girl, but Bananas is a champion. Shot needs to be made, which is at the time, these are the two teams that are going to be going down into elimination. He then is like,
and as you kind of mentioned earlier, like as you're getting down, it's kind of not just your relationship with one partner, but it's both, and you're going to have some history. And yes, Nelson and Bananas seem like they're on much better terms than what they were, 4 or 5 seasons ago.
Yeah.
But there's a long history of those two going at it, so that can't be that big of a shock. On top of he's a 7-time champ,
right? Then the other options end up being Amber and Chauncey and Darrell and Veronica. At the time being, we'll have them both in the dagger to save the other. And like Darrell and Veronica will be there because we're going to be putting Nani and Bananas in straight up. Darrell and Veronica should be safe either way because both teams have proven that they would save them in the past. We can't put in Casey and Kenny because of his moral stance of I can't risk having Casey go against her girlfriend. Not going to put in Tori and Devin because they're working together, and not going to put in Olivia and Horacio because he's screwing Olivia, to put it nicely. So these are the options that get put up, and some people are shocked. Some people are like surprised, but this is where the veterans all come together. They're like, yeah, we had our suspicions. Now we know. Now we know that Devin is up to something, and for whatever deals that he's making, it's preventing them from getting put in. He's been too calm these past few rounds. He's definitely controlling things.
Yeah, he is. And, as when we can get into the interrogations, but, you can see it that when they're out at the bar later, that Devin's always the person that's right next to the winner, that night right after they win. And maybe it's not as subtle if he's doing it every week, but, so far it's worked. So good on him.
Yeah. If you're going to let him be outwardly in front of every single winner, be like, hey, you're my buddy now. Like, don't put us in. We're good. If I win, I definitely will not be putting you up as one of the 4 people, is what it is. But this is where the first wound to Amber, because Amber's like, I would never have touched Nelson or Nerys. Like, I don't get what's going on. Like, why would Chauncey be actually actively, because this part's a miscommunication where one of the reasons when their interrogation is Nelson asks them in between interrogation and at the bar, like, you had a conversation with Jordan. I know this because other people have talked to Devin about it, and Devin relayed it to me. And he essentially said that you guys made a deal, but that you weren't going to protect Jay and I from Jordan. Where it's like partially true, but partially not true. Like, it's very vague because like, Chauncey in that conversation never vocally said, you can go after Jay. It's cool beans. Like, no sweat off my back. But this is like, I think the conversation that twists everything into how Devin wanted this elimination to somewhat go, because Amber pops off.
Yeah, I don't know if this has anything to do with it too, but we've seen it. Do you think, and she isn't the only one, there's a history of it with a lot of different people on the show, but anytime that they're put into a difficult, conversation, or it's news that they don't want to hear, she always cries. And like I said, she isn't unique to that, but I think that also could be a reason that maybe bothers people, because it's like, okay, like, I get being upset. Nobody cries this much.
Well, it's like a similar thing with Michelle, and why people keep thinking she's fake is like, just because she's empathetic and will she's not afraid to show her emotions, people take it as fake or take it as like strategy, something to like disarm us and like make us rethink through what should be the correct plan. So like disingenuous in a sense. But I think it's just her being her, and it's just like, I guess, rubs them the wrong way. But we go through the rest of this. Anissa and Jordan get it. They're like, we were just trying to lay low. Jay fired at us, but lines have to be drawn. We get it. But you may be putting your horse, like, you're connecting the horse to the wrong cart here. And more so not talking about Jay, but talking about
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense.
We already pretty much brushed over the Darrell and Veronica of it all. And I love the 180 in this episode. Within 20 minutes, Darrell's like, Nelson's learning. Now let's just stick to the plan. The plan does not stick. And then we have Bananas and Nany. And I like the candidness that Bananas and Nany have in this situation, where it works sometimes and it doesn't work in others. And in like past episodes, it did not work. This episode, I feel like it did. Where Bananas is like, hey, look, let's cut the crap here. Like, I get it. We're here. Nothing we can do about it now. You're aligned with who you are aligned with. However, when we won power immediately, you guys weren't even a thought in our minds of being put up. Like, we thought we were good. And if we had any concerns, you would have been one of the 4 people. And Nany then, I think, does a good point of manipulating the emotional part of Nelson. And just being like, well, if something bad goes down or you directly fire at us, you know me, I'm not going to forget that ever. So choose wisely. And then she just goes, Bananas, I think we're done. Let's leave.
Yeah. And I think, there's been a lot of conversations the past few episodes of, the vet entitlement. And I get that a lot of people are turned off by that. I don't necessarily love it. And Nany's been one of the biggest, people that people had an issue with, simply because she's her and Anissa are probably the 2 biggest of like, where does all this come from? But I think this was actually really well played on her part for simply just saying like, Nelson, you and I have a relationship. We've been fine. Say what you want about Bananas, who's almost 40. How many does he have left? Who really knows? Maybe he has a ton more left in him. But I'm still going to be around here for a while. And not only that, but, my girlfriend is going to be around here for a while too. So is this something that you want to do? Because this will be an issue you'll have to deal with for seasons to come, where I think is a much better way of playing it than I'm a vet. Why am I here? This is BS.
Right. And that's what I like about it. And this is what I love about the challenge, because you can't just strategize for the season that you are in.
Mhm.
If you strategize for the season you are in and you win that season, congrats. But you have to realize there's repercussions coming up in future seasons that you are on. And I think Nelson is a player that respects the challenge. He wants to be a champion. He wants to do the right thing, but he also has made all these friendships. And it's him trying to balance, how do I keep the friendships but play the game to win?
Mm-hmm.
And his approach has now become play the passive game. Send in the people that don't necessarily make the most sense in terms of like, well, if you want to win, why are you sending these teams that are deemed weaker in? And he has to pretend it's a good move because of his respect for the challenge. They're the weak teams, and it's disrespectful that they're there. So they need to take each other out.
The other thing that I think is a good, really subtle move by Bananas is, so we had a longer conversation with it when we were talking about earlier this week on the Challenge Australia, which, by the way, is great. realitypatron.com. Get the links. Watch our podcast. It's patron exclusive. But, on the episodes this week, we were talking about, there was someone who didn't do themselves favor by going and talking to the team in power, and ultimately was the reason why they got sent in. And I think one of the smart things that Bananas does is he doesn't do that. He kind of lets it, he doesn't go up and try and, kiss ass and say, oh, this is why you shouldn't show me in. And maybe there's some seasons where, yes, having that additional conversation is what saves you. But specifically in this format where 4 teams are already out there, we're not working with a bunch of rocket scientists here. Someone is going to sink their own game by saying something they shouldn't. And so by him simply just sitting back from the whole situation, here comes Amber and Chauncey.
Yeah, and so we sort of already went through the bar scene, the fight. We gave our take, so we can sort of just move straight into the zone. I will want to say that I was very happy and proud of Michelle for standing up for herself, and be like, I'm not going to take this. I'm not going to be gaslit into continually apologizing or continually having to tell what you deem to be the truth when I've told you what I felt and my actions just speak more than what you are concerned about. Ultimately, this is Devin's whole attempt to get Amber and Chauncey in the hot seat, and it ultimately works in the zone. They're the team that Nelson and Nuri send straight in.
Yeah, and just real quick on Michelle, I think I was proud that she stood up to her, because I think, especially if she's going to keep coming back to future seasons, she can't be someone who's perceived that you can just, bulldoze. Yeah. And so by her at least standing up, I think that's something very good for her, not just in this game, but in future games as well.
Right. And I feel like there's potential in the future here with these new ladies. Like, I can see Narice working with Michelle and Olivia and like all these new, like the fresh meat of it all, like coming back for future seasons and still working together. Do they have their differences? Sure. But I feel like there's so much potential there for good gameplay, and I'm all about it. But that gets us to the draw. And for the second week in a row, Bananas and Nani go first. Bananas and Nani pulled the safe dagger. A lot of people are calling shenanigans here. However, I feel like it does need to be called into question that people have found the loopholes into this before, and there's just luck involved as well. Can we actively say that they're rigging it to keep Bananas and Nani in the game? We can't until we're proven otherwise. And I know Bananas has said on previous podcasts that like for other seasons with this type of mechanic, they have figured out like one looks different than the others. So you pick the one that looks, and it's like a very small thing, very like tiny thing. But if you see the thing that's different, that's where you're going to always lean to go in and pick. And someone with his experience may have more of a keener eye to it. But we can't really like sit here and like be upset about it, even if it is rigged, because it's benefited other people in the past that weren't Bananas and Nani. Like Devin's whole rookie season was him benefiting from a draw. Johnny Riley in free agents.
Even
never
Jordan
picked a skull.
Jordan in Dirty 30, how many times did he pick the double cross? I think it was 3 or 4. Yeah.
Right. Like things happen.
Yeah. So I'm with you. I don't think yes, they're 2 for 2 picking first. Maybe, people think that's a little bit shady because we haven't really seen anyone else. I don't think we've seen anyone else pick it on the first attempt, but I'm willing to give it to, Bananas has found loopholes in this game on many different occasions that maybe that's what he found. If they continue to go down there and pull it every time, well, then obviously open to revisiting that conversation.
Right. Okay, so they get picked. They save, obviously, Jordan and Anissa. The legit vets have to stick together at this point. Sorry, Darrell and Veronica. You never made us feel comfortable enough that you were willing to come back into our good graces. So here, you can go and face Amber, and Amber can go try to eliminate her mentor in Darrell.
Yeah, that's pretty much what they had to do. I think that was part of the reason that we were shown that conversation with Bananas and Darrell earlier was, hey, this was kind of a chance to get on the same page. Now, regardless, I still don't think that would have switched, their decision. And that I think if you're Nani and Bananas, you're always going to pick Jordan and Anissa there, but it at least is, hey, we tried to have a conversation. You didn't necessarily want to play ball, so this is what we have to do.
Yeah. And that gets us into the elimination. It's called Deep Web. And you start at the top of the tower. You then have to go down through all the levels of like rubber webbing to pick up a puzzle piece, one partner at a time. You keep doing that back and forth until you get all 8 puzzle pieces. And then you have to complete a puzzle at the top, which is this grid of 8s that have to just be completely locked in once all puzzle pieces are in. There's no gaps. I like this challenge. We've seen a version of this before, and we also seen a version of this before where Veronica did well in it.
Yeah.
But this go around, the thickness was maybe a little bit to the detriment, but not enough where that was the reason why they ultimately lose. Because as Darrell says, like the puzzle's always going to be the great equalizer, and luckily for them, Amber has proven she's not good at puzzles, and it looks like Chauncey ain't great at them either. Sounds like they were up there for a long time. But I like the elimination.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's something that we haven't seen before where I think, yes, you want to keep, the staples of the eliminations, but I think this is a good one, that they were able to bring us.
Yeah, and Amber and Chauncey win. They win. Amber's now 4-1 in eliminations, and this is just her 3rd season. Like, say what you will. Say however she wins them, but she wins them. And starting your first 5 eliminations with a 80% record of winning, I would say it's pretty good.
Yeah, I think she falls under the category of maybe not the biggest finals threat. Though she's won the only final.
She's a finals threat in terms of running, not in terms of the tasks.
Yeah. But she is someone that, where we've seen a ton over the past, maybe like someone like Laurel comes to mind. Yes, different, body types, but you don't want to go up against her in elimination because she is built well for those.
More importantly, you don't want to go against her pissed off. Which tends to be what she's like when she's in elimination. So, but yeah, they win. Veronica and Darrell lose. They are the first of the teams that entered the game late to be taken out. Darrell says it's not the last time we'll see him, but I believe I can see him returning to the main show again. But I feel like we're now at a point where we need these teams or these players to stick to the All-Stars format or other formats. Let the main show gain these new players and let them be in the forefront.
Yeah, I love Darrell. I'd love to keep seeing him on All-Star seasons. And even if he comes back for the flagship show once or twice, I just don't think he can win All-Stars. I don't think he can win the main show anymore.
No, I just don't think it's in his cards anymore. But the plan does not go right. Darrell and Veronica leave. Amber and Chauncey are still in here with setting their eyes straight at Devin. Jay's mad at Nelson because you had 2 goats here and you literally didn't put them in. And we leave it with Jordan, who's been getting a lot of last confessionals of the episodes recently, and it's basically also him like pointing his shot mainly at Devin, but like also at Nelson. It's just like you made the wrong choice. You had a perfect opportunity to make a great decision, and you didn't do it. So now there's going to be repercussions.
Yeah, I'm conflicted because I do enjoy a more mature Jordan who isn't as much of a hothead, and it's nice to see him grow into that person. But I also do love it when he's pissed off at the house because he normally does really well. So kind of want to see a little bit of the balance of the two.
Yeah, but that wraps up episode 7. This was a great episode. These last couple weeks have been killer in terms of just like the quality of the episode. So it continues to give me promise as we move forward this season. But Dan, do you want to give some promo on what's coming up for Reality After Show?
Yeah, so the next big thing, if you're looking at live events, will be our last live event that Jonny's tour has been going on all season. We will be in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's the town that I live in. We will be at Lenny Boy Brewing Company. That's this coming Wednesday, November 30th, I believe the date is. You can get tickets at survivortix.com. That's Survivor TIX. I know we'll have Jonny there, obviously, as well as the Queen, Sandra Diaz-Twine, and then another 3 or 4 surprise guests. Come on out. It's going to be a great time. If you've been to Jonny's live events, you know you're a lot of fun. If not, I promise it's worth it. They're a ton of fun. You can get general admission tickets for $25. You know, that starts the event maybe 45 minutes to half an hour before the episode. You can come in, talk with Jonny. He does trivia and a bunch of things throughout the commercial breaks that, you know, really gets the crowd involved. And if you want to go VIP, you can come. That gets you in an hour early. You can do the meet and greet with all the contestants that are there, as well as a Survivor buff that Jonny will be giving you.
Yeah, and obviously the best way to support the podcast outside of pressing like, subscribing, giving us 5-star reviews, because we love all of that. Best way to support the podcast is become a Reality After Show patron at realitypatron.com. That's realitypatron.com. That's where you'll get access to the secret Facebook group page, where we have drop boxes for Q&As, which is Jonny and Matt's favorite podcast of the week. They talk about everything and anything, and I literally mean it when I say anything and everything. And if you don't ask it, Jonny will still talk about it. So it's a great podcast. It's my favorite one to listen to every week. They are currently finishing up the back end of the Survivor Australia All-Stars season through Matt's watch along through time of Survivor Australia, as well as Challenge Australia coverage done by myself, Dan, and Jonny. We are 4 episodes in. The next 2 episodes will be coming out on Monday and Tuesday next week, and we'll be recording every Tuesday at some point, talking about those episodes. So a lot of content coming your way. There's different tiers. Depending on the tier, you also could get signed pictures from former reality TV and Survivor contestants. There's a lot to do. So go to realitypatron.com and subscribe today. Dan, thank you very much for joining me today.
Absolutely.
And we will be back next week at our normal time, a Thursday at 4:30. Good night, everybody. See ya.